What is up everyone, and welcome back to another video. So as you probably know, solo victory cash cups are back for season 4, and in today's video I'm going to tell you guys everything you need to know in order to place super high in these cups and potentially make a bunch of money. Before we get into it, be sure to drop a like if the video helps you out, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more. And before we get into this video, I'm super excited to announce my brand new partnership with the Fortnite Masterclass. Fortnite Masterclass is a website made by the pro coach Destiny's Jesus, which is essentially the ultimate guide to placing in tournaments and improving at the game. The Fortnite Solos Masterclass is one of my favorites. It has over 160 videos involving top pros like Reet, Noah Rayleigh, Day, Tayson, and so many others, where they teach you some of the secret techniques and strategies you can use to make earnings in Fortnite. These include ways to guarantee you win off spawn, rotation strategies, and specialized pro routines to improve your aim, mechanics, and all other areas of your gameplay. As well as that, there's also a duos masterclass. There's an off spawn masterclass including a free drop map to get you perfect drops every single game, and even a masterclass bundle where you can gain access to every single masterclass they've made, as well as every masterclass that comes out in the future. So if you want to really step up your game and learn some of the secrets to making money in Fortnite, then check out the website. You can find the link in the pinned comment or near the top of the description. I'm super excited for this partnership, guys, and you're probably going to see more from us, so stay tuned. But with that said, guys, starting off this video, I want to talk about some basics of these victory cups. These are just some very basic things that you'll want to know about them if you don't already. The victory cups use a 2-round system. To qualify out of round 1, your placement is going to depend on your region. In EU or NA Central, you're going to need top 7,500. Brazil and Asia are going to be top 5,000. And then OCE and Middle East, the smaller regions, are going to be top 2,500. The first round is 2 hours, and you have up to 7 games to qualify. If you qualify for round 2, then that's going to be a 1-hour long tournament where you can play 3 different games, and each win is going to grant you $100 US. So the goal is basically to get as many points as possible in round 1, obviously, and then play purely for the win in round 2. I just wanted to make sure you guys have that information just in case you don't. So my first tip for this tournament is a very important one, and one that a lot of people miss out on and end up not qualifying because of it, and that's to not W key. W keying, especially in the first round, may seem enticing, but with 30 points of possible placement every game and only 1 point per kill, not to even mention the 15 points for claiming the loot island or the 3 for the radio tower, kills simply aren't worth that much in these tournaments, to be honest. And not to mention, in the second round, it's all about the win, so kills literally have 0 significance. I'll put it this way, even if you were to drop 10 kills every single game in round 1, that still would not be enough to qualify unless you were placing good too. Now, of course, you're gonna need to fight in some situations even in round 2, particularly off spawn and in endgame, so you're not gonna want to play ultra passive by any means. You don't want to just hard camp the entire game, but trying to W key hard is most likely going to get you killed and end up wasting your games. And even if you do get a lot of kills, it's really not going to benefit you that much. Since points start to increase in the end game, the way to qualify through this round is to play good, consistent end games and just do that through and through. Kills are helpful and they're good if you can get them safely, but placement is always going to be the priority. And if you look at the vast majority of the people that place in top 7,500 out of that first round, or whatever the qualifying number is for your region, you're going to see that this is a pretty consistent factor. They get good placements and they don't really get that many kills. Placement points are very powerful in these tournaments, so make sure you're not W keying and throwing away your games. With that first tip in mind, the second consideration here is surviving off spawn. In general, I'm going to recommend landing at a smaller POI or at an unnamed spot. The big spots are mostly going to consist of people trying to W key, and the odds of survival there just aren't good. If you go to any of these new mythic locations that are out, you're going to get some crazy loot, but chances are you're going to die before you're actually able to get it. It's really just not worth the risk in these tournaments, especially since they're shorter tournaments with not as many games. If you had 10 games, then maybe it would be worth doing a W key game or 2, but you have 2 hours in the first round for 7 games, and obviously the second round W keying is just a terrible choice. You'll want to pick out a spot or even just a loot route with plenty of loot and materials to go around. Make sure you're confident with being able to drop early, get good loot, and finish off anyone else that contests you. The best way to do this, in my opinion, is simply to land at your spot and practice your route over and over again in solo ranked, and really just try to get comfortable with rotating out of there appropriately. Make sure that you're also confident and know inside and out the areas surrounding your spot. Obviously, you're going to end up rotating to these spots all the time, and you want to be able to rotate comfortably to the dead side of zone in most situations. By doing all of this, you're going to be able to minimize your deaths off spawn and set yourself up for a great rest of the game in both rounds of the tournament. Getting into my next tip though, and this one is super important in both rounds of the tournament, specifically in mid and end game, this one is to play for refreshes. What I mean by play for refreshes is essentially don't fight meaninglessly. You don't want to just get into a fight in these tournaments for the sake of getting into a fight like you would maybe in an old solo cash cup. You don't have siphon anymore and kills are really not worth that much, so going for 20, 30 bombs and stuff like that just doesn't do it anymore. Instead, you want to focus on playing fights only when you have something to gain from the fight. This is super important. For example, let's say you're running around in the later part of mid game, you've got stacked HP, great materials, and a good loadout, and you really don't have much to gain, but you've got a lot to lose. If you get into a fight and you get stomped on, then you lose your entire game and you lose this great situation, versus if you win the fight, you really don't gain anything. If anything, you're probably going to have less materials and less HP than you did before, and at best, you're going to gain 1 point. So really what I'm telling you to do here is to actively weigh weigh out the risks and potential benefits of each fight you could get into, and really think about whether or not it's worth taking. A lot of people get way too caught up in wanting to fight and seeing another player and instantly going into that fighting mode, and there definitely are situations where you're going to want to fight, but make sure it's going to improve your chances of winning the game or benefit you in some way instead of lowering your chances. Especially once you reach endgame, you're going to be able to pick up some easy refreshes on people on low ground or in shambles situations, but make sure you avoid putting yourself in a bad situation while actually going for those kills. If you're able to apply this strategy and go for the kills that are safe and beneficial for you, at least the majority of the time, then you're going to be setting yourself up so much better and winning so many more games. And finally guys, getting into our last section and definitely the longest section for this video, and this one is winning endgame. With the super high placement points in the later stages of the game, placing super high and potentially winning during endgame is a big area to focus on. We've got a lot to cover here, so let's just get right into it. In general, you should be set up fairly well most of the time when you make endgame. That's if you played early and mid game correctly. Ideally, you're going to have decent materials, plenty of HP, and at least reasonable loot. The first key in endgame is to focus on getting early refreshes. A lot of people make the mistake of playing out their endgame too slowly. They focus on their rotations, which are obviously super important, but they end up forgetting to get a refresh, and all of a sudden they end up on low ground in shambles trying to 50-50 for their life. I recommend you focus on getting a refresh before you really need it, ideally when you have around 300 to 400 materials. In general, I'd say the 8th zone is a fantastic time to start going for these refreshes, since it's a half and half zone and people are usually rotating a good distance, and a lot of them are going to be in shambles and easy kills. Another super important tip is to stay ahead of zone whenever it's possible. If you watch people's endgames in a solo victory cup, especially if you watch the better players, the times they die are almost always the times where they end up in shambles on the backside of zone and they end up getting picked off. Chances are, if you're staying ahead of the zone and you have good HP and materials and stuff, you're really not going to get attacked that much, and even if you do, you're usually going to win that fight. If you're able to keep your refreshes and keep your materials up, then your ideal scenario is one where you stay on the front side of zone at all times. Doing this is going to do something very important by keeping you from being someone else's refresh, and it's going to set you up super well to eventually take height and win. It's not always going to be possible to stay ahead, and you'll see that in the gameplay, especially if you get bad RNG with your zones, but you should at least make an effort to do it whenever it's possible, because that's the ideal scenario. And of course, the final stage of the end game is going to be your final moving zones, and this is going to be the time where you start to think about taking height. Based on the gameplay that I've watched in solo cash cups in the past couple of seasons, the ideal time to take height seems to be any time after the 9th zone or so. It's going to depend on your situation though. Generally, you're going to want to look for when height is either uncontested, when the player gets beamed, or when they seem to be dropping down, and simply snatch height either by building up, using the rocket ramp, or any other method depending on your situations. As you can see in the background footage, the guy we're watching is taking height pretty late as it's already the final circle, but the player on height was only one box above the guy we're watching, so he took the opportunity to get a shot off, grab height, and this ultimately led to him winning the game. The most important thing here is to simply stay aware of what's going on above you and wait for the right time. If you can take height pretty late in the game while having good materials and HP, then chances are you can bring the game down to a 1v1 and most likely secure the win. And one last thing I want to add in here is that in round 2, especially as you enter the final zone or two, make sure that you're stacking up your white heals like med mist and slurp juices, since I've noticed a lot of these round 2 games end up being a heal off, just like the gameplay on screen. Once you reach the point where you're fairly confident that you're going to make it to the heal off, then I definitely recommend you start trying to stack these up, because the odds are most round 2 games are going to end up at a heal off. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to the YouTuber SaucyRN for the background footage. The footage I used was from last season, but I thought it gave some really good examples of what a solid endgame might look like. So hopefully having that example kind of makes it a little bit clearer for you guys what you might want to do. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to dominate solo victory cups in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 4. Overall, by following all the tips in this video in both round 1 and round 2, hopefully you'll be able to qualify through and potentially make some money in these tournaments. Once again, guys, if you want to check out the Fortnite Masterclass, then that's going to be linked in the description and in the pinned comment. We're planning on doing a lot more collaboration type stuff in the future, so definitely stay tuned for that. With that said though, if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more, and of course guys, it's always super appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, it only takes a couple seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a bunch. As always, a giant thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.